So I apologize for the delay and the technical difficulty. You would hope that we had this down by now, but technology is not perfect. So we just changed over to a new system. So I apologize for that. So I'm going to kick this off really quick. This is our second Tibbetts Advisory Group meeting. Now we're going to start getting into showing you a little bit of our conceptual plan. So Panara will lead this off, and then you'll hear from our design consultants, Hazen and Sawyer, and then you'll hear from Stephanie a little bit later. So we're going to mute everybody to start off. But if anybody has any questions along the way, feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand or put something in the chat, and you can jump in at any time if you have a question or a comment. And then we'll have some time for discussion at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, Pinar, would you like to start?
Sure. What a rough start. I can't wait to have these meetings face to face soon.
I know.
Good old days, which we just had to show up after a long metro ride. But nevertheless, I'm glad most of you could indeed figure out how to get through this event right. So this was a good test run, I guess, for the next one, because we are going to be having these meetings with you all. As you know, this is a very critical project, and I am lucky to be accompanied by many talented staff, both from the Parks Department as well as DEP, and we have our consultant team here today accompanying us. So, you know, today's meeting is critical.
Where's my phone?
I don't know, Laura.
In three
I got in. I'll tell her.
Sorry, if you're not speaking, I appreciate if you can mute yourself, because we are going to be sharing quite a lot of information today. As I explained, there's going to be a three-part presentation. On the first part, I'm going to go over, recap some of the critical elements of this project, and then I'm going to transfer it to our consultant, Amir Momin, and he's going to be going over some of the features for the recreation opportunities for the public. And as we had highlighted in the past, what we would like to get the most input is really the access points along the CSX line, and including the starting from the Van Courtland Park South all the way to the 230. So we are going to go street by street and give you, the information, what we have seen and observed during the reconnaissance survey, and discuss the pros and cons of these access points. So today, you are going to see a lot of information, but the real feedback, which we are hoping, and I'm hoping, is going to come at our field trip this Thursday. Looks like it's going to be a good day for a field trip, so we are excited about that. And Stephanie is here accompanying us to go over the logistics of that field trip. So with that being said, if we can go to the next slide, please. Again, you have seen this over and over again, but just for those who might be coming new for this particular meeting, I would like to recap of the project elements. It is a tremendous project, and it has a lot of moving pieces. But this one slide tried to capture all these important pieces, which one is the lake restoration piece, which we are calling Van Courtland Lake Improvements. That's going to be our first phase, and we'll be starting the construction of that lake improvements next year. And then the big project, the project that you've been all waiting for decades, is the Tibbetts Brook Daylighting project, which is going to start with the modification of the existing weir. We are proposing a new side weir, and we are taking the flow from the Van Courtland Lake and daylighting it along the Van Courtland Park South and the new proposed CSX rail line, which we are currently in the negotiations with the CSX Railroad. The agreement hasn't been signed, if some of you might be asking today, but we are coming quite close for reaching the final agreement with the CSX. So it's been going really well, and we appreciate all your support of making that happen. So a couple benefits of this project. Again, I think most of you already know. but it never gets too old to talk about these benefits. It's really the Cso benefits is the water quality focused benefits of this project, and this project is going to be our biggest ever built green infrastructure projects in the city. However, the benefits doesn't stop there. As you all know, we are also adding the green way benefits, making the, in this part of the borough, which public do not have an access to a park area, is now going to get that access with the daylighted stream portion. So it is definitely win-win. And we are very happy that our Department of Parks is really working with us every day on this big project. So funding is in place in this particular project. The total funding is around $130+ million of today's money. We want to keep that and don't overrun it. So that's a very, very good amount. And we are excited to start the project design this year and hopefully start putting the bid packages by 2025. So Metro North portion is going to be not a discussion point today, but I know most of you are wondering what we are doing in that portion. And as you can see, at these red circles down, south of that red circle, it's where the Metro North starts. And currently it's an active yard. I know Karen Argenti and the team have been in close contact with the Metro North, the agency, particularly the MTA. But as of now, what we are proposing is, put the daylight all the way to that property line, and then we are going to go underground because it is currently an operational railroad, and therefore we don't want to affect the operations and there's not enough space, but ultimately come back to the river and connect to the existing Cso outfall. So today I really don't want to distract us all to talk about the Metro North. There's going to be more discussions coming in the Metro North, and we'll be happy to discuss more at the field trip. But today's meeting is really talk about the features, recreational features, as well as the access points, which we really need a lot of input from you all. So if you go to the next slide, please. So the lake improvements, this is a really true product of John McLaughlin working with Meredith Larson from the Parks Department, as well as Stephanie and her team and you all, which we would like to bring restoration opportunities to the Van Courtland Lake. As we are already going to be boots on the ground building this project, we said, why not bring more invasive removal, some native vegetation additions, so on and so forth. So that's what we are starting as the first phase and calling this the Van Courtland Lake improvements. I think John already explained in depth what this restoration is going to look like. But again, on Thursday, we are going to take you to some of these points and actually show you what it's going to look like before and after. So we are excited about this opportunity. Next slide, please. All right, so here is the meat of today's presentation. We are going to go over these potential public access features, which we will be showing a lot of pictures and a lot of schematics, what the Greenway could look like, some pedestrian bridges where they are going to be potentially located. We heard from you that educational signage is important for this project, so we put additional interest on it and give it a further thought where could be a good opportunity along the Greenway to put these signs, including the seating and overlooks. And also Amir is going to talk about the plazas and some other seating opportunities. So that I think it's going to be better again realized when we do the field visit. But today we would like to show you this general overview, what we are proposing, and really receive your feedback at the end of today in the Q&A section, but mostly on the Thursday face-to-face. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you all. And with that being said, I'm going to give it to Amir.
Thanks, Pinar. I know you've been saying me. I know Sandeep is on the call. If I believe he would wanted to present these slides as well. But we can go ahead and start ahead already. Oh yeah, go ahead, Sandeep.
Abhi, thank you, Pinar. So just building on what Pinar had just laid out, the next few slides, we were just gonna go start from the beginning of the project and showing you what the existing conditions would look like and what we are proposing here. So next slide, Abhi. Starting right at the Van Courtland Park, you can see this is the picture of the existing conditions. Right to the right, you can see where the existing main weir exists, and I don't know if you can see my pointer, but Abir, if you can point out to where the main weir is, so we will be reconstructing a portion of the main weir, and then we will be installing a new side weir at this condition at this location right here where you see the cursor. Next slide. So this is just showing you a proposed rendering of the main weir is in the background, and then this is the view of this new side weir. This is going to take the base flow and up to 38 CFS from the Van Courtland Pond and daylight it across this pathway where you see the bench on the other side. Next slide. So again, this is just giving you, this is the existing conditions, the view you get if you sit on this bench, and then what we have proposed, this will be the start of the daylighting project. And as you can kind of see here, this is just showing pools and riffles morphology, base flow of about 7 CFS and a wet weather flow of 38 CFS. So again, any flows in excess of 38 CFS, which equates to about the 3-month storm, will still be routed through the main weir into the Broadway sewer, but all the base flow and the wet weather flow up to the 3-month storm will be passed through this. There is a safety fence that is shown here, as a placeholder, but again, discussions are underway to get the look and feel of the fence and the vistas and the views from here. Next slide. So this is just giving you an example that in this part of the open daylighting, we are trying to mimic the natural channel aesthetics by providing a pool and riffle morphology. And again, we have space here within, and that will create a natural stream with associated pocket wetlands where some of the overflow waters can be temporarily stored. So making this a total natural area restoration with a natural throughout the entire park. And then that's our plan for doing the design within the park. And then once we get into the CSX corridor, where it's more of a straight and narrow corridor, the morphology is going to change. We are still going to try and create some pools and riffles, but in a straight alignment, because there is really not enough space there to create the meanders that you're looking at here. But we will still include energy dissipation structures and pools and riffles, but more in a straight alignment. Next slide. As we move down the corridor, again, as you can see, Abir, if you can point out where the stream will be aligned. So the stream will be aligned along this path here. And as a result of the stream going along here, some of the pedestrian recirculation is going to be reimagined. And we will show you that. So here, proposed rendering, rather than having a pathway go through it, we are going to make this an overlook and bring the water here and create a pocket wetland and make it an educational element of the entire stretch. But again, the mainstream channel will be behind this blue bridge that you see here. As we move down the corridor, the next slide is again showing you an existing condition just on the Van Courtland Park side or side of the Van Courtland Park South. You can kind of see this is the where you see the graffiti. That is the Van Courtland Park South Street right there. So this is where we would be including this, creating the daylighted stream channel. And this kind of shows you, next slide, shows you a proposed rendering of what we are anticipating here. So again, this would be one of the pedestrian bridges within Van Courtland Park from where we started and to Van Courtland Park South. There will be 2 pedestrian crossings of the stream channel where people will be able to be on the Greenway and then come in into the additional pathways that are already established within the park. But then this Greenway will also continue south into the CSX property. Next slide. Now we are into the CSX corridor, and with the aerial map here just shows you, the white line shows you the corridors that are available. There are certain corridors within the CSX right away that are pretty wide, which are about 60 to 70 feet wide. These yellow arrows that we show, but then the middle section of the CSX corridor gets constricted based on all of the development that has taken place on the north side here, on the west of it, and the corridor width there is only about between 28 to 32 feet. So it's rather constricted. So we have 2 typologies of the open channel and the porous Greenway that we are proposing. By the way, one of the things I forgot to mention, that the entire Greenway, except as I noted, will be installed as a porous Greenway. So we're going to try and minimize the stormwater runoff or any overflows from it. So within the white section, you can see this is a typical cross section where we will still create the pools and riffles morphology, but we will have to sacrifice some of the meanders because we just do not have enough space there. But essentially, it will be a vegetated section. On the Deegan side, we would be providing a barrier wall, which will again be treated in a way that it meshes with the natural surroundings that we are, or natural corridor that we are trying to create here. Next slide. So here's a proposed rendering of the white section of the wall. So this is, it will be vegetated, and you can see some of the pools and riffles morphology that we try to create. One of the examples that is closest to us is some of our inspiration we got with the Sawmill Riverdale lighting, where you can see it goes through a very urbanized section in Yonkers and still maintains the pools and riffles, but not the meanders. So this is typically just showing you the porous Greenway and then the open stream channel through the wider section. Next slide. Now we are just discussing the narrower cross section where we do not have space. From this orange line to the concrete wall is only about 28 to 30 feet at its shortest. So here, instead of having a full trapezoidal channel, which in a linear fashion, what we're going to do is have the proposed greenway is going to be cantilevered, and it will be very close to the water. And since this is the cantilevered portion of the greenway, it needs structural support. So the greenway will not be porous here, but we will do a vegetated swale, which will have some porous underlayment. So again, we're going to try and capture the runoff in a very environmentally sustainable way. Just because of the structural nature of the cantilever, we cannot install porous pavement on the greenway itself. Typically, the greenway is about 10 feet wide. In Van Courtland, within the park, it is as much as about 12 feet wide, but here typically we are trying to keep a 10 feet width here. In addition, we are still trying to maintain a pools and riffle morphology within the open channel. And again, these will be stone and boulder embedded stream banks with vegetated pockets so that it still gives us a very next slide. So this is again a proposed rendering of the cantilevered portion of the greenway. And as you can kind of see, the major difference is that the underside of the greenway would be imbricated with boulders and rocks, and we will not be able to vegetate that side, but anywhere there's an opportunity and across the open channel, we would be able to vegetate it and create a total natural field. Next
So
slide.
there was a question in the chat. He just wanted an explanation of where that was along the line.
Okay,
Yeah,
if
this
you
is
can
Robert.
go back
There's a
one more
distinction
slide.
between
Okay.
the two phases you've just showed, where the cross street, how they're determined by cross streets. Thank you.
Okay, so this narrow section starts at 239th Street and goes right up to 234th Street.
234.
That's the 234th.
Okay, and the one with the extra buffer.
The one with the extra buffer is from Van Courtland Park South to 239th Street. And
Okay.
then again, it widens after 234th Street right to 230th Street.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Next slide. So the next point we wanted to talk about, as Pinar had described, the major point of discussion and feedback that we need is on the access points. And as Pinar had pointed out, is that we had done a site reconnaissance and site visit of each of the streets that intersect the CSX corridor, starting from Van Courtland Park South. Abir, can you go to the next slide, please? So as you can see, we went through to each of these 10 locations or 10 access points, starting from Van Courtland Park South to 239th Street, 38th Street, 237. So we have a slide on each of these locations where we're going to go through, what the constraints are and what the pros are and what the cons are for providing access from each of these areas. Some of them, as you will see, are not feasible, but again, we would like to build consensus on and see what's the most appropriate areas where we can provide access to the greenway and the open channel. So the first one we'll discuss at Van Courtland Park South. And as you can see on the right, there is a picture here, but a couple of the key things that we wanted to point out is from providing an access perspective, the elevation difference between the Van Courtland Park South and the proposed greenway is about 18 feet. So it's a big elevation difference, and that would create some safety concerns and stuff to do that. The pros for this area is, again, we are connecting the greenway to a major street, and it is a direct connection into Van Courtland Park South. But again, the issues here are that it's a very heavily trafficked street. There are no crosswalks here. And then the elevation difference and the potential interference from the on and off ramp from Deegan could create some interference issues. So I'm just going to go through each of these slides, and then we can come back. We can come back to any of these slides that you want to discuss further. And make the point. So then we looked at West 239th Street. We do feel that this could be a proposed access point because one, the elevation difference is cut by half. It's only 9 feet. From a constructability and safety perspective, it is a side street, so it does provide some benefits in those areas. And then it also is close enough to Courtland Park South via West Putnam Avenue. So again, it is connected to a major street, even though not right on it. And then being a side street, it also is a preferred location for any maintenance activities or maintenance vehicles and access, even from an emergency access. This is one of our preferred locations. So next slide. The next one we wanted to look at is 238th Street, which is again a block down from 239th Street. Again, the elevation difference here goes back to 17 feet, which makes it very challenging, especially based on the narrow corridor. If you remember, this is where the CSX corridor has narrowed down to 25. So trying to provide any kind of access would take away from the Greenway width, which gets pinched. There is private ownership directly adjacent to the Greenway on both sides of the street. So trying to find an appropriate location to create an access point would be a little challenging here. Next slide. This is West 237th Street. Again, this is what we call the Riverdale Crossing. And as you can see from the picture, the Greenway, proposed Greenway is just behind this green fence. So from an elevation perspective, this is a really good site because the elevation difference between the proposed Greenway and the street is only 5 feet, 5.5 feet. However, using this as one of, it is under private ownership, and it interferes with the entrance of a parking lot for the BJ's and Petco, as you can see here. Still, this is part of the narrow CSX corridor, so any sort of ramp or entry here would maybe sacrifice some of the Greenway width that we can achieve because we only have about 30 feet here. Next slide. This is just a block down, and again, here the elevation difference is even better. It's only 3 feet. And it is like where you see the trucks right at the end of the street, it is right on the Greenway. So there's really a very short transition going into the Greenway. The issue here, again, it is under private ownership, and there might be a potential interference with the loading dock on beaches that you can just see on the left of the picture. It is within the Putnam Avenue West right-of-way, but it is under private ownership, and it's a parking lot for the Riverdale Crossing Corporation. So obviously we will have to have discussions with the private property owners to see if this is feasible or not. This is at 234th Street on the north side. So we looked at both on the north and the south features here. Again, we are back up to 16 feet. It is a narrow CSX corridor. I mean, this could be one of the potential locations. The street is publicly owned, so we can provide an access, but the major con on this is that the big elevation difference of 16 feet. Let's look at it from a southward perspective. It's the same location. And then just looking south, same, the elevation is still. So there is potential either to go on the north or the south, but the issue is that it's a big elevation difference, and the ramps, if we provide a ramp, it would be rather long. Potentially, we could do a stairs there. Next slide. 233rd Street, we are back again at 17 feet and in a very constricted area. And to me, again, the large elevation difference, presents certain constructability and safety concerns. And really on either side of this crossing, there's private buildings which are right abutting the CSX right away. So any sort of excuse me, ramp structure would be going across these buildings, and we would have to coordinate with that. Next slide. Then we are looking at 231st Street. Again, the elevation differences seem to be all within 17 to 18 feet, which create a lot of constructability and safety issues. Next slide. Then we go into Verveelen Place, which is again from a constructability perspective, very attractive. The elevation difference is only 4.5 feet, and it's a small side street, just a block away from 230th Street, which is a major thoroughfare. So again, from our perspective, this could be one of the proposed access points for the reasons that as we just laid out. And then the last street that we wanted to talk about is 230th Street. We are back at 20 feet elevation difference, which kind of present the constructability and safety issues. Second, 230th Street again is a very heavily trafficked street, and then it's directly adjacent to the on-off ramp. So all of the issues that we encountered in Courtland Park South are pretty much applicable to 230th Street too. So with that, I would turn it over to Stephanie, or if we want to entertain questions, I would turn it over to Stephanie, and then we can entertain questions on the access points.
That sounds great. Thank you, Sandy. So I want to just give a shout out to the rest of my Van Courtland Park team, which includes New York City Parks and BCPA staff, in particular, John Paul Katusko and Christina Taylor, who have advised on this quite a bit. So our field visit on 4/21, we're going to meet at the Van Courtland Golf parking lot at 9 a.m. And then we're going to walk around the newly named Hester and Pierrot's Mill Pond to see the edge of the water body and the living shoreline. We're going to then come back and look at the Mill Dam and the site of daylighting and the two weirs. We'll come around to the Blue Bridge overlook, and then we'll take a look at it from the parking lot south of the Blue Bridge. And that's an interesting spot because that's where a lot of pathways will actually change going forward. We'll cross over to the western side of the ravine and look at it it'll be on our left. And then we will cross Van Courtland Park South. Those of you who are taking the shuttle will jump in the shuttle there. We're going to go all the way to the furthest point. We're going to go to 230th Street and then work our way backwards to Revealand, 234th, 236th, 238th, 239th. And then we will come back to Van Cortlandt Park Golf House to have a conversation. Next slide. So if you are hoping to join us, I hope that you registered yesterday. The registration is now closed. It is a 3-hour walking tour, so please dress for the weather, wear really comfortable shoes, bring a water bottle. And as you, if you're familiar with the area, you know that driving in this part of Riverdale is very, very difficult and dense. So parking is really challenging. We are recommending that people walk. We'll have some guides to lead us to the locations that we're going to, or we are able to provide a van. NYC Parks is able to provide a van, but we would need to know if you are taking the van as soon as possible. So if you are registered for the walk and you would like to join us in the van, please email Tara or myself, and I'm Stephanie at vancortland.org. That's the easiest way to get me, and I'll put that in the chat. And again, if you've already registered and you want to ride in the van, you can send a note to Tara or to me to reserve a seat.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. So we have a couple questions in regards to, I'm trying to read this from the chat in regards to the access points. So Sandeep, I'm going to invite you back. So I'm going to try to find, okay, so the first question is from Mike Stanton. He's asking, there was a railroad siding separate from the main track behind the Stella plant just below 238. So can you go back to that slide, 238th Street? And the question is, the open space was therefore twice as wide as the main line. Is the space gone or incorporated into the commercial development?
No, it's 236th Street,
Oh, it's 236?
237th Street. Next one. No. 236, 234. So you can't see it on here. So there is a road that they call Putnam Avenue South, which is the parking lot. Is another
Yes.
road. There is another road there that I was pretty sure was used to bring the stuff into Stella Doro. We're trying to figure out what that is. We've BCQ has put in a question to the Borough President's Office of Topography. It seems like it's a junkyard now. There is extra.
And are you
You're
talking
right.
about?
Hello?
Nora and everybody, that's what we were up here, and we were trying to identify that. It's parallel to the long BJ's parking lot that extends south.
You see where the number 6 is on the map?
Right.
Somebody's now it's doing it. So the one that's closer to the buildings, like over to the west more, above the Putnam, there's an empty piece of land which is a street.
Yeah, it's an unmapped street. It's
It's
being
an
used
unmapped street.
being used for junk, and it really is a perfect access for that area.
So it is potentially a private ownership.
No,
Are
they're
we,
on private ownership. There is, the Putnam Avenue West is on private ownership.
right.
The
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
one,
So
there's
maybe-
another street that's there that's not mapped.
Carol, this is an elevated level above. It's about 50 feet above that parking lot that's leased to NYPD. We're familiar with that. Yeah, this is right above it, and it is a maps on an unmapped street.
Okay,
But it,
we'll make a note of that. But we'll be visiting the site on Thursday.
Yeah. It's really important. Thanks.
Sandeep, you were gonna say something?
no, I was just saying that, yeah, that part of the street is elevated. So again, it's, when we visit it, we can look at it to see, you know, it would, it's under private ownership, and from an elevation or engineering constructability, it's very feasible to provide an access from here, but it's the ownership that's the issue.
Okay, I am going through the questions again. So there's one more question. We would need 230th Street to create Greenway connection south, or the closest accessible location, as we need the Putnam line to connect to the Dynamic Star site, which is the Fordham Landing, and the Harlem River Greenway. We really don't want this to be a greenway to nowhere and make it accessible to all the Bronx.
This is Chauncey. I put that comment in there. I mean, I think the issue is obviously we know there's limits on, you know, as the locations with the busiest streets, which are honestly the best in terms of greenway accessibility, are often the highest points we're noticing on this. But it is important that we're having a location to the furthest point south on this greenway to be able to, you know, make a safe connection, because the alternatives are very dangerous. And we want to get folks as close to 230th, you know, and make that connection to 225th Street connector into, which will be the future connector across. It's just essential because the rides on the, you know, streets alongside this are just very dangerous, both Bailey, Broadway, all the sites. So as much as we can keep people going as far south that you can get out, it's just really essential.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, you're agreeing that this site has a lot of disadvantages to be included as an access point, but we should have an access point as close to the site as possible.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. If 230th isn't possible, then it should be, you know,
Yeah.
Vervina Place or whatever is the closest
Right.
one that we're seeing there.
Yeah, if you can, yep, this is the one. I think one good news that I'm hearing from all of you, this is, we are all agreeing to Vervina Place. And so we have one site that
Good.
we all are agreeing, and it's an easy access, and it's, as you can see, the ramp length is gonna be 65 feet. So I wish there's more of the Vervina Places along the corridor. So let me see if any other. Okay, David is saying, I'm confused with all of these crossings, which are the planned as access points, at least as of now. That's a good question, David. So as of now, we have proposed access points, but we do not have the final access points. So Sandeep, can you cover those proposed ones? One of them is
currently the first proposed one is the, okay, we can start from 239th Street. So that's just a block south of Van Courtland Park South. So again, a lot of your preference was to have an access point from Van Courtland Park South, but for the reasons we just talked about, you know, this is the closest to Van Courtland Park South. And again, it's from a safety and constructability perspective, this seems to be a proposed site. And what we are looking here is there's direct street access. It's a block away from the main street. And this could also be an access point for maintenance emergency vehicles, because it's off a side road. And the only con that we can see here is that right now there's no existing sidewalk on Putnam Avenue South, so it would require a sidewalk extension, which is again a much easier thing. The next proposed access point is
I just want to go back, Sandy. That other one, 239th Street, is also accessible to Bailey in a half a block at 238th Street.
yes. Yeah.
So the people that live, most people live from Bailey Avenue, so they come either from the west or the east. So the people that are coming from the west, from the east side, they would be able to get to this.
That's correct. Yeah, because you can make a right and then come right to it. Yes.
Right, okay. Sorry.
Okay, then the second access point that we are currently right now proposing is from the south side of West 234th Street. We are looking at, again, the elevation difference here is still, so we are looking at a proposed staircase. The constructability of a ramp, we are still evaluating because it's going to traverse certain buildings across it. So we are still under evaluation of that. But as far as staircase access is concerned, we have worked that out, and that would be a potential access point for us there. Next. And then the third proposed access point that we are currently working on is the Vervelen place, where you can clearly see that it's only 4.5 feet and it's very adjacent. And this again has the same benefits that we talked about at 239th Street, that it's a side street, lighter traffic, and very limited elevation difference. And this also would serve as a access point for maintenance and emergency vehicles.
Mhm.
Pinar and Sandeep, I had a question about how you end and the importance of leaving a link for a possible continuation on city streets via DOT bikeways. Have you thought about making this, leaving this? I know the project ends at 2/30th, but including the people who may actually be able to continue this and map it, aside, as I said in the chat, assuming that MTA does not change its access decisions. Has DOT taken a look at this so far?
Not that I know of.
Pinar, this is Mitchell from Parks. Hi there. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Mitchell. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. So
Good,
Parks and DOT have a good working relationship to discuss all kinds of Greenway issues, and we have brought up the topic of this extension of the Putnam and the Tibbetts daylighting project to them several times. The last time was just this afternoon, and they also saw versions of this that you're seeing right now. So they're being kept up to speed as this moves along, and we'll keep asking for input from them as things get more finalized.
Okay, Mitchell. Yeah, we'll have more time to talk about this through other venues, but thank you. It's imperative.
Agreed.
All right, well, Mitch, since you're here, there's another question for you. And the question is there a rule of thumb guideline for how frequent, that is how close together entrances to a greenway should be for safety and convenience of users? From Minda.
I wouldn't say that I know off the top of my head of a perfect cut and dry rule of thumb. I think that, we're hoping that none of the entrance points are further away than a quarter mile from each other. But there's all kinds of different scenarios where it might be important to make that distance shorter, or it might be okay for that to be a little longer. It just kind of depends on the specific site conditions. So sorry, I don't have a clean answer that Parks uses. We're kind of take it situational based. So that's what we'll do here.
All right, I'm going to go to the next one from Deborah. I think she's noting that access to the east side of the Deegan is important. Vervelen and West 239 are fine, but are not true streets. West 234th or 233rd seem important. So I think we are all agreeing those locations that we have to go visit and discuss further. I'm going to go to the next one from Rob. Sorry if I missed this, but how wide are the two travel lanes in the Greenway? And what are you anticipating in terms of treatment of the Greenway at the access points?
So Pinar, in the CSX right away, the Greenway, the total width is about 10 feet, so it's 5 feet direction. But in all cases, we are trying to provide a minimum of 2 feet buffer. In the wider section, we are providing that buffer on both sides. However, in the narrower section, which is a cantilever, the vegetated swale is about 3 to 4 feet wide. So we're providing, from this barrier on the left side. However, the cantilever pathway is, there's a protective fencing this side so that it would keep the bicyclists and walkers, away from the water and safe from the water. But right now, within the CSX, that's what we have. Within Van Courtland Park, the bikeway is about 12 feet wide, giving 6 feet on either side. And you have larger buffers there.
Connection, I think it's cutting off, Sandy. I don't know if I'm the only one, but it's coming and going out. Rob, did you get the answer?
Yeah, thanks. I understand that it's typically in the Deegan section, it's 5 feet wide. I guess just one, and I'm sure this is, well, you guys are well aware, but where people are coming into the Greenway on the access points, and potentially you'll have bicyclists moving at speed in either direction, just having that kind of safety idea of making sure that there's good sight lines for the bicyclists, as well as the people coming from the access points, as well as, kind of thinking about where people might queue to the degree that things are, they have to wait for a bicyclist to come by, in particular, if they're coming down a ramp, something to think about.
So Rob, my response, I maybe that spot that got cut off. So around the access at 239th Street and at Vervelen and wherever there are multiple accesses within the park system itself, in all of those cases, there is almost like an on-ramp. So the bikeways are wider there. So it's not people are just directly coming in and cutting off the oncoming bicyclists or walkers. So in all of those, what I gave you were the nominal widths of 10 feet wide, 5 feet per ongoing 5 feet the other way. Just the regular bikeway, but where there are access points, they are 15 to 20 feet wider.
That's great.
They're much wider to provide an on and off ramp. So people are exiting from there, they have a way to get out without disturbing the bikers that are continuing or the people coming onto the ramp itself.
That's great. Thanks.
All right, a few more questions. We have half an hour left, but Christina is asking, I think this goes back to Mitch. How will the Forest Greenway be maintained? When they were planning the Greenway within Van Courtland Park, Park said they couldn't properly maintain the forest pavement. How will they do so now?
Thanks, Pinar. I'm actually going to ask if Stephanie can help out with this one, having a better knowledge of maintenance responsibilities in the park. I know that, some discussions that we've had with DEP thus far is that we want to be targeted in the areas of the porous pavement, not necessarily everywhere throughout. So that way we're balancing maintenance responsibilities with good water filtration or water movement. So Stephanie, is there anything else specific you would add to that?
No, I think that's actually really quite good.
Okay.
All right, the
I'd
next.
like to add my little 2 cents into the Greenway and the asphalt and the porous asphalt. So my understanding is there's hardly any difference between the porous asphalt maintenance and the actual asphalt. And it actually doesn't even, you can't even tell the difference when you pour it. But from an environmental point of view, we really all need to be very mindful of the climate change problems and how we maintain things and how we are talking about people in a healthy situation, and not, if it's difficult to get to maintain it, then maybe we'll be thinking of other ways of making sure that that happens. But as far as I have been told from people who have seen this, is that it lasts just as long, and it is as it needs to be taken care of just the same as regular asphalt.
That's not actually accurate. It is much more difficult to maintain in the day-to-day. So it would require an enormous amount of staffing to maintain. So that is, that's something that would have to be considered.
Do you have that in your park?
No, but we have someone on staff who worked in a park that had porous asphalt and can speak to that.
Right.
All right, we'll pick up the maintenance issue. I mean, as part of the maintenance responsibilities, we had to define the maintenance schedule for any proposed infrastructure improvements. So that's definitely gonna be part of the further discussions as we start finalizing the proposal. The next one is about hours of operation. So Camelia is asking, there will have to be hours of operation open for public access. Otherwise, it risks becoming a site out of sight, vulnerable to criminal activities. Is this a question to Mitch or Stephanie? Is there going to be an hours of operation or the park similar to other parks?
Stephanie, chime in if you have something different to add, but I think it's still something that us here at Parks will need to determine what the best policy is. Of course, parks have different hours of operation, but they're not always fully able to be closed. If you think of Van Cortlandt Park, there's no way you could close off every single entrance, even though the park hours might be ending at dusk or ending at midnight, etc. So this is more of an area that might be possible to control. But also other greenways in the city, we consider those as kind of necessary corridors to be open at all times for people that may be using them to travel safely off the street. So it's kind of a balancing thing. It's still a policy that I think we have to determine at Parks, but we do understand the potential safety questions with this corridor that's sunken below grade a bit. It's kind of a little bit isolated.
As someone who's a bicycle commuter and commuted regularly to work, there were times I needed to catch a 4 a.m. train or something like that, that I would take that Hudson River Greenway. And sometimes coming back at 1, 2 in the morning from events or from late night at work when I was working down in Manhattan, and I would take the Hudson River Greenway. And it was certainly the only safe way to get back and forth was being on a Greenway versus being on a street at that hour. So I just, would definitely recommend not to close it off. My bane of my existence is the High Bridge, which is the bridge that I helped open that closes at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. and is just a nightmare for someone who's working.
All right, so more to discuss on this particular issue again. So the next one is a good one from Deborah, and she's asking, can we connect Variable in Place to the Albany Crescent overhang on the other side of the Deacon? So I think
I think you actually in that picture you can kind of see it. I know it might just as a suggestion, because at Albany Crescent, there's a metal overhang that's more than halfway over the Deegan already. And so you can kind of, in the little circle piece up there, you can see the metal squared off portion. That's Albany Crescent, the road. And then there's a metal corner that hangs over the Deegan. And so it seemed like if you could even just extend it over that additional bit, you could run a ramp up. Then that would get you to Albany Crescent and then Bailey, and then you're at 230th, but not on actual 230th. So,
all right,
just as something to put into the suggestion box.
Yep. I think we can visit that at the field trip on Thursday. All right, we'll make a note of that. I think I'm going to skip your question, Robert, which we already discussed, the DOT's involvement, which Mitch mentioned that they are coordinating with DOT. closely. The other one is from David, saying that we learned that hard way on the Van Cortlandt Park Putnam Greenway, making it ADA accessible, also enables powered vehicles, mini bikes, ATVs, so on and so forth. How will you address that danger? This goes back to parks.
Yes, so I mean, these are kind of design details that I think we'll get further into once this progresses a bit further, but there's different ways to use bollards to constrain space, access to a greenway that would prevent like a larger like ATV, et cetera, from accessing. But again, it's a balance because we want to be mindful of people that may be using cargo bikes or bikes that have little carriage attachment for kids, et cetera. So it's something that we have in mind, and we will work on these details with DEP and with Hazen as we get further down the road.
All right, going to Camellia, and she's saying entrance at 236th further from the Mavis, where Putnam Avenue West, currently used for parking. If you can go to that, is kept. I assume because of private property, but that is important for access if technical vehicles, etc. It should not be removed for further investigation. So, Camellia, are you saying we are skipping 236th Street, which we are not?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, because you didn't present it as being under consideration. And I think Robert and Karen's points were very, very significant. That's a very large Putnam West. It's a very large access point. I'm thinking about sort of like incidents where police may need to have a presence with a car. I mean, that's an excellent access that definitely should be further investigated, even if it's now under private property, because that really allows a vehicle to go in there if necessary. So just wanted to make the point to please have a look again.
All right, great comment. So we will, I mean, just to make sure that everybody understands, we are not eliminating any potential. We are just saying that out of everything we showed, we believe there are some ones that we can only agree today, and there are other ones that we are going to visit all together for further discussions. So this is definitely going to stay on our list, and we will make the visit. And I think there's going to be further discussions internally with the Parks Department after the field visit. Okay, Mike is asking, does the Naples Terrace Step Street between 231st and 232nd west of Broadway cross over to the east and extend to the CSX tracks? That corridor appears to be used for parking. The land could be owned by the city as a paper street like Putnam Avenue was. Do we know?
Pilar, that's something we can investigate. I think the ownership was not clear. Dahlia, if you're on the line, if you, or we will investigate and be sure that we have that answer when we meet on Thursday.
Indeed, we looked into that, and that is a privately owned. It's a main loading access, and it's elevated above to those properties. We can see the white, buildings. Yeah, it's so Naples Terrace doesn't actually go all the way across Broadway, and that part is actually part of a private lot. But we'll walk by that on our way tomorrow, on Thursday.
And there is an elevation difference, right? Because it is elevated there, right?
Yeah, there's like stairs currently that go past there on the back of that building. So there's also access issues associated with the current, building as well.
I also walked by it last week, and I know that this entrance here is gated right at Broadway.
Yeah, because yep.
Okay, moving along, the questions. Again, there's a lot of forest maintenance questions. I think we discussed that, so that's to be continued. There is no simple answer, Camelia. Who is gonna maintain, who have the budget, who have the resources? It really depends on where this is gonna be proposed and how often it needs to be maintained. So we'll pick it up at our next meeting, but we make a note of that. And then, is DCP in this conversation? That's from Camelia. The Department of City Planning.
Yeah, I already answered that for her. Hi, it's Carol Samuel, and I'm here wearing multiple hats, but yes, we're here listening and ready to help out.
Great, thank you. Okay, and Zach is saying goodbye. What else? There was a mention of a potential budget at the beginning, but the sound wasn't very clear. This is coming from Ray Bromley. Was it under 30 million? Yes, it is. I can't remember the final budget number, but it's around that number. It's around $130+ million project. That's the current cost of the project, including the daylighting and the Greenway. And then the last question, having available parking is a plus. An example would be the BJ site, as people often drive to a Greenway to bike, especially with young children. There's parking in Van Cortlandt Park, but it's always valuable to have other sites. Frequently, private landowners are interested in hosting bicyclists and walkers to park on property if they can buy supplies at the store. This is done on many locations on the Empire State Trail. And VJ is a confiscation. So I think that the pitch is here to go talk to VJs. We are gonna need you, all of you. I don't know honestly how these kind of agreements are made with the private owners. But definitely this will be something that we'll make a note of. And I think further discussions are needed with the Parks Department. Mitch, unless you have some experience in the past dealing with private owners and these kind of situations.
I think the answer is that every situation like that is unique and needs its own approach. So nothing specific to offer there.
All right, I believe I covered all the questions. Anything else? I mean, it's kind of open floor. We have 10 minutes left. A lot of information, more to be picked up on Thursday for sure. Here's again the slides. We want to show you where the field visit is going to be happening. So we are starting sharp at 9 a.m. Van Cortlandt Golf parking lot. Stephanie covered. So we are very much looking forward to seeing you all.
So I would just like to mention too, so this presentation is being recorded, so we'll have that if anybody wasn't able to get in or missed it. We'll be sharing these slides, and I'm going to send you all a link to the Tibbetts Brook Daylighting webpage that we just put together. We're developing it as we go, but that's going to be the site where you can go to and look at any of these materials that we'll be putting up. And if any of you are on here and have not registered for the Tibbetts Advisory Group, you can register on our website. So I'm going to send that in the chat shortly, and then I can also recirculate that to you guys in an email.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, before we close off, you know, I just want to really appreciate all of you coming to this after the technical difficulties, but we are indeed have a multitude of meetings also planned upcoming. Do we have that schedule slide, Kristen, or go another one? Yep. Okay, good. So, you know, maybe some of you might be wondering, okay, what is next? So here's our quite an aggressive schedule. And, you know, Karen and the team always pushes us to run, not walk, right? So we really wanted to get this project up and rolling, and we can get into the construction phase with all your support. But along that way, as you can see from this presentation, there's a lot of upcoming meetings. Presentation to the community board 8 is May 25th. And then we are targeting the PDC submission, which is going to be early summer. Along the way, as I mentioned earlier today, our negotiations with CSX acquiring that railroad easement is still continuing, but we are hoping to close it sometime soon, hopefully in the summer. The seeker process is important for completion of this project. So we added here so that we don't lose the track of it, but that is also coming in this summer 2022 with the projected completion date. And then we'll be going into the construction for the phase 1. John, Merritt, and the team are excited for the phase 1 construction. June 2023 is our expected date, and that construction is ending 2025. And then you can see every other step follows quite expeditiously after that. We are hoping to finalize our conceptual design and make it a final design spring 2023, so that we can put that design into a bid package and we can advertise the construction contract in the summer 2024 with the anticipated construction completion 2027. So I really don't want to lose track of these dates. I know we all waited long enough, but also we don't want to, miss anything. So your feedback is quite critical during these upcoming months, especially by the end of this year, where you are going to be seeing a lot of information coming from us and working with you directly.
So Finola, I'd like
yep.
to comment on the schedule here.
Go ahead.
Just so you know that I assume we're doing a neg deck, but the community boards do not meet during the summer. And so that, I mean, I'm thinking like it would have to go to September.
No, the presentation is in May, and then the PDC.
May I to that? Since may I speak to the presentation first? Okay, Penard, would you mind?
Wait, let me finish. So I wasn't talking about the presentation. I'm talking about the seeker. So the seeker is down here for the summer.
I see that. I want to go
completion.
in order.
So okay, you want to go in order?
Yeah, so I just wanted to stress to those who are listening that the community board meeting is a community board meeting. You have to contact the community board to get the link or to get the in-person location for that. And it's a really important meeting. The community board committees, it's parks and environment and sanitation, will be taking a vote on that time. So I just want to stress that it's open to the public. It is a community board meeting. If it's virtual, get your Zoom info from the community board. If it's in person, we will tell you where it is. That's it. Thank you.
All right, good reminder. Thank you. And I think there is one question from Ira. Are the milestones in the project website? We are going to be sharing, as Tara said, this presentation, and I'll keep this, we are going to keep this slide as part of the presentation, so you'll have an access to it. I'm going to go back to you, Karen. Your note on the seeker process. Did you get the response on that one?
No, so I don't know, like, when are you gonna, like, you're gonna give them like a 30-day period? I mean, what is the plan? I don't know why you're doing seeker.
This is the project seeker for the whole project that we can continue. I think there's going to be a 30-day and we can extend to a 60-day review period. I can talk to our internal team here about the seeker project deadlines, but we need to complete that before we can bid the project.
Okay, so but the community boards don't meet in July and August.
Yeah, I think we can. I mean, we can, as I said, we can definitely extend that time frame. So Sandeep is here. Is this going to affect the design completion, Sandeep, if we extend the projected completion date to the fall?
The seeker is not driving the schedule.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. All right. Good.
And seeker is not needed for phase 1. I mean, it's a type 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
All right, so good. It's independent of the design completion, Karen. So we'll have the time to extend it beyond the summer for review.
Okay, good.
All right. Okay, I think it's, yeah, we are gonna put the link to the presentation in the project page. I think Tara, you are gonna do that. You are gonna post this on the project page.
Correct. And I just sent the link in the chat, but I'll send you all an email as well once we post. It might take a day or two. We have something to do for the commissioner tomorrow. We have one website person, so just be patient, but that will be coming.
All right. Okay, so one more thing that I should have highlighted here, but we are expecting another meeting just like this with a field trip in the fall. More details are gonna come. But you know, as Karen said, I think most of us leave for the summer, but as we make enough progress on these questions that you've been raising, as well as the access points, we are gonna definitely come back to this group. And I hope you like the setup. We are gonna have another Zoom-like meeting, unless we can meet in person, but then follow it in the field face-to-face, going to some sites and then debriefing after the presentation. So if you all like this kind of a format, we are indeed hoping to repeat it in the fall. Anything that you want to note, Tara or Mitch, along those lines?
Nope.
You know,
Nothing
you may
here.
not be able to see raised hands.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the raise hands, no.
Okay, but I just have a quick question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. A very good presentation, very helpful. For those who want to know, about 2 or 3 up in the chat, Tara already put in the link to the presentation and I clicked on it and it does work. It's very useful. But contrary to that, not that I want to waste paper or trees, Tara or Stephanie, it might be useful if you had a handful of these presentations on hand Thursday for us to look at while we're walking.
We can make that happen.
Yeah.
Great. I wouldn't do for everybody, but a handful would be useful. Thank you very much. This is very good.
And David, that's a great point. And what we are planning to do for everyone is a map, right?
Yeah.
We all have to have a hard copy map. I'm a very old-fashioned person too. I have to have my hard copy. But we are going to distribute a map so we can, you know, go see those sites and we all agree which points that we visited. So in addition to the maps, we'll definitely bring a couple copies as you requested.
And I would like to say this was a really helpful presentation, and I do want to thank Abir and Sandeep and Dahlia for all your hard work putting this together, and thank you, Pinar. You guys did a really great job, and thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for putting all of this together. I appreciate it.
That's excellent.
All right, thanks you.
Beautiful renderings. Thank you.
All right, see you all Thursday. Don't be late.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
All right,
See you
bye.
Thursday. Thanks.